First Peter chapter 1. As you're turning there, just for a bit of a reminder for all of us, refresher about this character that's written this letter. I have to think he's an amazingly unusual fellow. Yes, he denied the Lord. He was also the individual that was bold enough that when Jesus said, "I'm going to Jerusalem and die," that he got in front of the Lord and said, "No, you're not. I'm not going to let you." That took a lot of guts. And that definitely was part of Peter's nature. He had his ups and his downs like all of us in life. And I think particularly because of the failures that he had and the struggles that he went through to finally get to be the apostle I think that he set out to be, that he has every right to speak to us in these letters about struggles. I think any one of these apostles could have signed their name to the bottom of this like a Declaration of Independence that has so many different signatures on it, and all of them say, "We stand together on this." Well, you could say the same about the apostles, but it was Peter that speaks out often, and Peter that wrote. And he talks in verse 3 of chapter 1 about a living hope. Verse 3 says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who according to his abundant mercy has begotten us again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead." Go back in history just a moment on Peter's life here. He was the guy that followed Jesus all the way after the garden and after they'd taken him prisoner, and he wanted to be there. He tried to fight for Jesus to start with, if you remember. He was the one that pulled the sword out and cut off the ear of one of the servants of the high priest. It was Peter in there. He was ready to die at that moment until the Lord said, "Put your sword away." And then Peter didn't know what to do. God has a different way of handling things. And so here's Peter wrestling with all this. And then when he gets called on the carpet about being one of the servants, he denies it. Because how else do you defend your faith if you don't pull a sword out? And so he didn't know how to deal with this. And he didn't want to die. And he struggled because, as all of us, we have our fears, and death is one of them. Now in verse 3, after having seen our Lord face to face in the resurrection, and having witnessed Jesus, and absolutely, without a doubt, sure of God's power, now he talks about a living hope that is built because of what Jesus not only did on the cross, but what happened afterwards. And he was a witness of that. And so as he uses this word about the hope that we have as Christians, it's not just I hope someday I go to heaven, which sometimes I hear us say, rather than, God gave me a promise, I'm going there. But he says it not just as a hope affirmed that, but it's a living hope. Not a casual hope, not a miraculous hope, but it's a living one that's there for us, that's not dead. And that's established, of course, as he says, by the resurrection of Jesus. Everything that Peter does, because of all the struggles he goes through, runs through this filter of, I've got a living hope. Satan is not going to take me down, not like he did before, because I have a living hope. Everybody that had watched Jesus on the front side of the crucifixion had a lot of faith in him, but that when Jesus died, it was kind of devastating. And then after they saw his resurrection, what a change. And if he can do that, and he says he's going to do that for me, then I'm okay. I can deal with anything out there. Now, as he writes the rest of this letter, he'll go on and talk about what these struggles do for us. But at the very front, he says, I want you to see there's a living hope that'll carry you through. So why do I have to deal with these struggles? Well, they're good for us, actually. Verse 5, we are kept by the power of God through our faith in our salvation, which is ready to be revealed. And he said, now, verse 6, in this you greatly rejoice, though now, like the way he puts this, for a little while, like the rest of your life is more what it's about. They went through a lot of persecutions. We can't begin to imagine personally what it was like. But he describes it for a little while. So they're kept for us for a little while, if you need be, that you've been grieved by various trials, that the genuineness of your faith, being much more present than gold, much more precious than gold, rather, be tested by fire, may be found. You discover the genuineness of your faith through trials. It's easy to think about being a Christian when everything's handed to you. We talk about people today who were, or at least years ago, born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And what they mean is they had everything given to them. They didn't have any problems, didn't have any struggles, no issues in life. Everything was perfect. Not so with Christianity. And so, are you really a Christian? Do you really believe or not? Can you deal with that? Can you get through these issues? Yeah, because it's tested. And when it's tested, and those that really don't believe or they're just there kind of riding out things, they're gone. But the genuine Christians stay. They stay put. They stay grounded. They stay firm. And Peter says, I want you to be part of that. So as you struggle, remember the living hope that you have. And remember that along the way, these struggles are to help you, to nail you down to know, I've got a faith. I'll go back real quick in the Old Testament to, I guess, one of the greatest temptations a person could ever have. And that was when Abraham was called by God to sacrifice the only son he had. Those of you that are parents could never conceive of it. And this is exactly what God did. And Abraham went through every one of the steps. Got the wood, got the fire, got the sun, and got going. Early in the morning, he's heading out on this trail, and he gets up to the top, and the son's, of course, reminding him on the way, Dad, you forgot the sacrifice. And his comment is, God's providing, don't worry about it. And he's looking at the provision right there in the eyes, thinking about his son. He gets up to the top, and then finally, as he's about to take his son's life, and the knife is going up and it's about to come down, God stops him. And then you look at the words right after that, where God says, now I know the genuineness of his faith was proven at that moment. It was tough to make that journey. It's tough in our journeys. But we have a living hope. So as you hit the struggles, it's just to remind you of the genuineness of who you are and what you stand for. And you keep on believing. You keep on reminding yourselves and your friends, I've got a hope to live for. Tonight, as you're struggling, it was particularly difficult, and you want some prayers for that, we're here to help. If you've never made that step in following Jesus to become a Christian, I know along the way we start believing and trusting and praying, but have you made the commitment of baptism, where you're buried with Christ in baptism, Romans 6 says? Jesus describes it as being raised as a new life, John chapter 3. And except you're born again, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven. But it's there for us and available for you. If you've not made that commitment tonight, will you do that? We'd all love to witness that if you're ready to make that commitment. Or you need to come back. We sing a song to encourage you and remind you of a living hope that we have. You need to come while we stand and sing.